Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for June 24th through 26th, 2020. How are you doing? Well, we are coming out of this really intense and powerful solar eclipse and solstice energy. Takes a few days to come out of that new moon energy, especially this powerful portal. And there's a sense that we're moving into a new chapter. You can kind of feel it in the air. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, maybe we don't have to stay in this very strange reality forever. I'm kind of getting a picture of what's been happening. And that's kind of how it is. When you go through intense astrological stuff and things happening, it doesn't make sense, especially this Venus retrograde and 4 months in Gemini and all the confusion. What do I want? Who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? And then the state of the world on top of it. It's like, oh, just feeling like, what is the point in a way? But now we're starting, then after, as you move out and the patterns shift, then you're like, oh, that's what that was about, right? So I'm starting to get a sense of we talked about how there's this nested timeline thing happening, especially with this, I think it has to do with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction that happened back in April. And this whole world situation thing. And so what happened was before that, we were kind of happily existing on different vibrationally energies, right? Everybody could kind of choose their own place they wanted to be. Then what happened with this intense time was we were squeezed into one timeline, or we're trying to be. And that is why it's so weird and so intense and so disconnect with people around you. You can have a conversation and feel like you never made it to the same planet, in that conversation. But there's a very profound and important reason that we need to examine around this that has to do with the fact that we are here to raise the vibration, to hold that light, to hold the higher frequency vibrations, to be a demonstration project. So we cannot harmonize down. But I know that's how a lot of us have been feeling, right? Sucked down into, I thought I dealt with this. I thought that I had I thought I'd figured this issue out. Excuse me. And then it's oh my gosh, I'm just back in the Piscean Age. I'm back in the Dark Ages, same old patterns, same old stories, right? Except for that, it's almost like we were squeezed down into this place so that we can invite souls to come onto this other timeline, to where it's don't fret, because we have been journeying down into the depths for a reason, and it's almost like a metaphor for our whole earth evolution, right? In order to be here, be a light worker, be a part of this whole, hold space in the light for this earth evolution, you had to go down, you fell, right? You fell from the angel that you are. You fell from that higher consciousness. You forgot. And you had to go deep into the mires, because if you didn't go deep into those darkest times on the planet, you wouldn't have compassion and understanding for what the human has to go through. Oh, it's so fun. But it's really helpful in the energies right now, the way they're trying to shift. It's oh, I was just visiting there. And it was all about me. It's what had to come up was everything that can still pull you back down, right? So that you are aware of it. And you're okay, yeah, that one, okay. And now I know what I need to address. So I'm really ready to jump on that ideal timeline. So I think because Venus is getting ready to turn direct tomorrow. And so we're in this shift of coming out of this fog. Of course, we're going to continue in the fog. And I think until Venus moves into Cancer. So we've got, that happens in August, in the beginning of August. So the first week of August, Mercury comes out of its retrograde shadow, and Venus will already be out of its retrograde shadow at the end of July in that third and final square Neptune. And then when it finally gets out of Gemini, that's when we're really going to make sense of things. So we've got another 5 weeks or so before, 6 weeks before we fully understand what this crazy period of time of 2020 is about. And then we move into that. We'll already be in the shadow of the Mars retrograde. But that's a whole different chapter. Don't worry about that one right now. It's a whole different vibration. Venus is like, what makes you feel good? What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel loved? What do you want? What brings you comfort? What's beautiful to you? And of course, the energy, and then we got Mercury retrograde in Cancer, and the message around this is saying, you know, this confusion you've been feeling, if you're doing it right, you're feeling very confused about who you are and what you want and where you're going. That's normal. That means you're in the right place. But this Cancer retrograde is saying to us, and the Sun and Mercury coming together, this is our next little thing that's happening, right at the as we move into July. Mercury and the Sun, Mercury retrograde, the Sun going forward, boom. Who do I think I am? In Cancer, am I of the earth? Am I welcome here? Am I loved by the mother? You know, that's the energy. So this Venus retrograde of like, I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going. Nothing's working. Like I'm so confused about just your everyday direction. What you know, it's like, how do you have to know what you want before you can get what you want. And so it's a really hard place to be, right? But Mercury retrograde in Cancer coming up with the Sun and squaring Chiron is saying, maybe it's because you don't know who you are. Like, how can you receive in your life or know what you want in your life if you don't know who you are? And that's the biggest, deepest mystery of these supernova souls. You guys, it's like, it's almost like by definition, the fall of going down into the depths of with humanity into these darkest times means you had to forget who you were. You had to pretend. Chiron, the wounds of Chiron and Aries are about having to pretend you weren't your big star self in order to stay alive through the Piscean Age, you know? And so then it's like, okay, how can you know what you want? How can you know where you're going? How can you find any direction in your life? Not that you really get to, because we're giving it up to God, right? But it's like, if you don't know who you are, you know? So this square to Chiron is like, it's time to figure out, it's time to receive. Mercury and the Sun together, because the Sun is like our identity, the role we're playing. The Mercury, our conceptual reality, you know, and our thought process, our constructs. So it's, who do you think you are in relation to your true self? And how can you receive the life that you think you want if you don't know who you are? And that seems to be what the astrology is saying. And of course, okay, the other thing that's happening, just as a little minor detail, is that today Neptune is turning retrograde. And now the bigger planets, slower moving planets like Neptune, you don't really feel them while they're retrograde as much as they turn retrograde and direct. So it's interesting because now we have Venus like, oh, Venus is going to come out of its long, deep, dark. Venus doesn't like going backwards into the unknown, right? And it's like Gemini, it's the unknown of who you are, your orientation with the world. And when you feel disoriented with the world, you feel like you don't even exist, you know? And you feel like you maybe shouldn't exist. And what's the point in all those dark feelings? So Venus is turning, but then right at the same time, Neptune's turning. And of course, Neptune in Pisces, it's like, oh yeah, you guys, we're not done with this Piscean Age stuff. Like, we are not done. But on the other hand, this whole thing for you, supernova souls, is about disconnecting and saying, oh yeah, no, I went there. I lost myself. I went and did some who knows what in these past lives, you know, totally outside of where my true spiritual, you know, what I would think I would be doing or experiencing. But now you can say, oh, but that's not me. You know, that's something I experienced. And of course it makes sense, but it's not who I am. And the Piscean Age can do its thing. You know, the Piscean energy It's like we're playing out patterns. You can see it in our world right now. It's hard to pay attention to what's going on because it's like, oh my gosh, we're doing this again, right? We're playing out these old patterns again in the world. Like, is humanity ever going to wake up? So that Neptune retrograde is like pulling back and saying, still some stuff to deal with here in the delusions of the Piscean age, but not for you, supernova souls, because you've been taking advantage of this time. You've been doing the work over these years. You have been having your ego death. You have been having your life fall apart so you can find your true self. And now it's time to get on with the story. But everything that's in the way, like this is Mars, so much is going on. It's like, 2020 is so amazing. It's like we get through one thing and then it's like a whole nother, it's just the astrology right now, you can't make it up with Venus turning direct, Neptune retrograde at the same time. And they've been having that square, right? And then we've got Mars, an exact square to the nodes, saying, what is keeping you from moving forward? What delusions, in this case, are keeping you from moving forward? And those delusions have to do with the South Node in Sagittarius, where you failed on your mission, you don't deserve to be on the earth, nobody wants you here. And that's where it's like, but the mother wants you here. The mother called you here. The mother that holds all, the mother that our earth is a representation of the mother. But the mother is that it's what calls all back to source outside of duality. And that force called you here to be the light that you are and to come deeper into the light that you are. Because after the losing yourself in this evolution, you'll never do that again. So you're on your way back to God. You've already turned the corner. So don't let this crazy time on the planet make you think you're not getting anywhere or you failed. That's the trap, for sure. And it's time to, Venus direct is like, okay, let's go. And can that going feel better? Can you feel better? Can you have what you need? Can you come home to the mother? Can you rest in her arms? And that means going beyond all of the stories of this world. So incredibly potent and powerful times. And thank you so much for being here with me and trusting me as your guide and working together. Our group is just our like supernova soul tribe is really just, I can feel it cohesively coming together, and super excited to see what that force, what we create there with that energy. The moon is in Leo today and tomorrow, so enjoy that energy of sticking your head above the clouds, maybe have some sunshine in your life, joy, getting back to the simple joys of life. It can be really helpful right now. Creative energy is really, really helpful right now. That's what came through the soul group session, was like, can you get excited about something and get into a project, even if it's just like a simple little craft project? Lose yourself in the excitement of creating something as a practice to say to the universe and to yourself that you're ready to move forward now. Enough of the dark ages. So we're in it together. Hang in there. Super dynamic time. The thing about this whole thing is that Jupiter and Pluto are now exactly conjunct through July 1st at 24 degrees. Then they're going to come back together in exact conjunction at 23 degrees, both retrograde, from July 6th through July 9th. So the whole first half of now until the middle of July is this incredibly potent Jupiter square, or Jupiter conjunct Pluto. And that is the light trying to come in to break the code of the darkness. And that's you. So be present as much as you can. And maybe that creative energy is a medicine for right now, because Pluto and Jupiter are about destroying, which some shit needs to be destroyed. How long are you going to play out these patterns, right? But it's not just, Pluto isn't destruction for destruction's sake. That's where Pluto gets a bad name. Pluto is making way for the more right and the good and the true, the future. Pluto is about something we don't understand yet, but it's careening into our world, kind of like our divine timeline, like our true self, It's like, oh, we all want that. We all want our optimal timeline and things to start working out and get on our path and purpose, right? And then we come to the Chiron energy. We just don't know who we are. So how in the heck are we going to do that? First, we got to figure out who we are and our true big spiritual self. And if you're stuck in the Sagittarius South Node, which we all are, of past life failures on the earth and rejected from this earth, and the more you focus into purpose, the more you're rejected. That's kind of how it's played out. But stuck in those energies, you're never going to be able to come in and receive and feel worthy of your true self. It's you. Nobody, you can't actually deserve it or not deserve it. It's who you are. You have cultivated mass energy and abilities and talents and skills, even though you've been playing out the lower realm. But the higher part of you is so on board and talented and knows what's going on. But you haven't been able to receive that back in your life. And now is the time. And apparently activating and exercising your right to be a creator in a very simplest form is the medicine for right now, for these intense times. So at least things are moving. We still have, like I said, another 6 weeks until we really make sense of what's happened here. But at least we're coming out. It's a new chapter. Venus turning direct is a new chapter, and run with it. So I look forward to seeing you soon on Friday for the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.